gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Welcome to Cornhusker Corner with Blake.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
I'm Brooks.
Is mayonnaise an instrument?
And you better bet your bottom dollar that these two brothers know how to handle business.
Here's a hand off the Thunder who gives it back to Mike Stokes. He's going to throw it. He's got a man out. Yeah! 40. It is. Eric Crouch. 15, 10.
All right, welcome to Cornhusker Corner, where there's no place like this podcast. As always, we're your host, Blake, my brother Brooks. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. You can follow us on X at @CHusker_corner. All right, another game in the books. Ohio State. Not the outcome, that we wanted, but definitely not the outcome we expected. So, but a couple of good things there. I think just on the outset, we can just say, we're proud of how the team played, bounced back from Indiana, specifically the defense. They came out and showed their fire and their grit again. That's good to see because it kind of looked like the wheels were falling off the machine the week before. They held a lot. They held Ohio State to 68 yards, something like that.
Yeah, 68 yards.
And that was like one of the strengths of the team. Now after the game, it's like, oh, Ohio State can't run the ball. Well, that's not what you were saying going in. All right.
Yeah, I know.
You had these two running backs. They're like, oh, these are game breakers. They're going to run all over. They're going to do this, that. And then, we held them to under 68 yards.
I think it is important to, and I was frustrated at first with like the narrative coming out of the game. And I knew it was going to be that way. It was like the narrative's now not like, oh, Nebraska might be pretty okay. Yeah. The narrative is, oh, Ohio State has real issues. And at first I was pissed, but then you step back and you realize, look, Ohio State's they're just held to a different standard. Yeah. And like when people say Ohio State's O-line is terrible, they're talking about like, oh no, they'll go 10-2 this year. You know what I mean? Like it's a different standard. Like they have to be good enough to beat Georgia, Alabama, those types of teams consistently. So they're looking at it from that perspective. We're not even in that talk yet. So I kind of understand it from that perspective, but we did get our flowers as well. A lot of the college football people basically looked at us and were like, man, this team is Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. We look at 1 week, Indiana, everyone, was down on us. We're talking about going, not winning another game. And then the very next week, Ohio State, and the team just came to play, and it was a road game on against an Ohio State team, like we said, coming off of a bye, having just had their first loss, supposedly pissed off. But what they obviously didn't account for is that Nebraska was going to be pretty pissed off too, and they responded, and it was kind of awesome to watch. I was gonna just sort of peripherally pay attention to the game, and then like I watched the whole damn thing every play, like pretty much. It's funny.
So. The whole first half, I was always planning on watching just the first half and then going golfing, which I had booked a tee time and everything. And then the first half happened. I was like, oh man, I probably would have just stuck with it. But the second half, I did have it on my phone because, YouTube TV, great service. So I was able to have it on my phone while I was watching. And so I did like watch, just not every single down of every single second, but in between my swings, I was driving the golf cart and I was watching, and it was really great to see. And there was definitely a lot of positives, especially offensively. People aren't really talking about that. There's a lot of things that our offense did really, really well. Yeah. A couple of them I want to highlight, but first let's just stay on the Ohio State reaction. Yeah. I going into the game, and ever since probably 2020, when we were trying to play football and everything, I had a lot of respect for Ryan Day, and just like how he carried himself. I just had a lot of respect for the guy. I lost all that on Saturday. Lost it. He's definitely under a lot of stress. Yeah, you can tell. But for them to complain about the refs in that game, outrageous.
Complete lack of perspective.
The fact that it was like a ticky-tack targeting call, but guess what? It was targeting. Yeah. And you can get mad all you want about it. You can throw your headset down, but guess what? You can throw your headset down. You know,
They appealed it. They appealed it, and they got it back. I don't know if you heard that. Like they appealed it
so
to
the
the
guy didn't
fifth,
have to
and
sit out.
yeah.
Yeah, so
Crazy.
a bunch of whiny babies, and then their
Yeah.
fans are a bunch of whiny pussies. Like especially like online comments and all this other stuff is like, oh, we should have done this, should have done that. I was like, okay, well, you guys obviously haven't been watching Nebraska all year, and you don't know. You just expect to beat everybody by 30 points, so you don't know your opponents. And a lot
Yeah.
of teams, to their defense, a lot of teams do that when you're really good. You don't really watch a lot of other football because you're like, we can beat anybody. It doesn't really matter who we watch. We watch a lot of football because we're trying to compare where our program is now to other programs.
Yeah.
So we watch a lot of college football.
Yeah.
And the people that do kind of looked at us, and Josh Pate was one of them. Joe Klatt was one of them.
Yeah.
They came out and they gave us our props because we came out, we out physical them. We just did.
Well, look, the Indiana game did numbers on our reputation. It kind of did. I mean, going into the Indiana game, if you would ask me what I would realistically hope for in the Ohio State game, it would look something like this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and so before the Indiana game, this was perfectly realistic to any Nebraska fan, and some people who weren't even Nebraska fans who had just watched the team, this was perfectly realistic. But that Indiana game really did a number on our reputation nationally, and you got to think as Ohio State fans and the team, they had a bye week that week, so they were all tuning in, guaranteed tuning in, maybe even at the team. So, so that didn't help them. I think that kind of like set the bar really low for what their expectations of Nebraska were going to be. As far as the broad picture on Ohio State, what you touched on at the beginning of what you're saying, I think I'm going to bring a little bit more of a nuanced perspective, which is that look, I think Ohio State's a hell of a brand. I really do. I think that I gained a lot of respect for them when they essentially had our backs. And Scott Frost was one of the first ones to come out and say, look, we're going to play football, whether it's here, there, anywhere. And of course, Desmond Howard's the reason we all hate him now, comes out and says, well, then kick him out of the conference. And then Ohio State comes in and they're like, no, we're going to play football. And the whole conference, okay, we'll play football. You know, and it was kind of a moment where it was like, okay, well, it kind of showed us that, first of all, Ohio State is the controlling force in the conference, and second of all, they at least had our back in that situation, in a situation where, if you remember, at the time, it was not as easy to have organizations back in that type of situation. So I do give them props there. But yes, the complaining at the end, the throwing the headset down, I don't want to get into to tinfoil hat territory, but the seemingly having the refs in the pocket. I mean, it's just the integrity of the game, in my opinion, is called into question, and the lack of perspective from them, combined with the reactions of the fans. Yeah, I don't know if I lost all respect and they're all pussies, like you said, but I definitely, like, it's down a rung. Like, okay, like, y'all are just a normal fan base. Like, you know.
But see, like, when Nebraska was really good, their fans didn't act like that. Granted, we didn't have online, comment sections to deal with.
And we have new generations of kids that maybe will act a different way these days, and we haven't been good enough to even see. So
exactly. But when you're just taking it as a whole, like, that's a really bad look. Anybody can be anybody on any Saturday.
Yeah.
They've gotten bailed out by the refs in 3 other games this year that I've seen. Like, I think I mentioned it before the game in Marshall. Like, the refs kind of took over when it was a little close and made it not close. Right.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm not saying that they're going to lose to Marshall. They were never going to lose to Marshall, but there are calls.
They helped out.
When
they helped out Ohio State against Marshall.
Yeah.
Like, come on,
against
bro.
Marshall. Like, and when there's blatant holding calls, when the commentators are like, what is going on?
Yeah.
You know it's bad. Like, because they're supposed to be impartial. They really are. But, like, those OPIs that we were getting called for, out of like, those are defensive pass interference, not offense. It made no sense. Oh, but no, they're Ohio State. You can't get in the way of them intercepting the ball. Like, they can drape all over you. That's their ball. They're Ohio State.
Two spots in that game, 2 spots in our game that were bullshit ridiculous. Okay. The first one was the one that was acknowledged by the conference. It was the one that was, I mean, everyone said a yard. It's 2 yards. It was 2 yards.
Yeah,
it was
3
3 yards when you account for when they put it back.
You're talking about the end of the half when Emmett Johnson definitely got a first down.
Yes.
The initial spot from the referee, he was going in for a first down.
Yes.
And then they cut away from the TV coverage.
What
so I don't know
happened
what
was What
But
happened was a lineman, a guard or somebody got beat back, and it was right at the moment that Emmett was crossing the plane. So the ref like lost track of the ball and pretended that the lineman and thought in his mind that the lineman had the ball. And it's like,
yeah,
bro, that you
but
can't
guess
make a
what?
mistake like that.
That's a reviewable play.
Exactly.
You know,
But it is,
and
but then we
also,
lost time, like
yeah,
it was an
yeah.
important
But then
situation,
no, they can put time back on. It's a
Yeah,
reviewable play,
true.
right? But the initial spot, if you watch it again, the line judge that was on that side for the lineman that you were talking about,
Mhm.
he's holding his hand up and running in at the spot where Emmett Johnson was,
And then he
and
moved.
then he gets there, looks, and then he moves back.
Oh no.
Yeah, it
What
was
the
not a good look.
heck? What
Not
the
a good look.
heck, man?
Yeah, but
So
let's move
that's the
on. Let's
one,
yeah,
but that's
yeah.
the but no, I hate that we're talking about officials this much, okay? But this
Yeah.
needs to be like, this was ridiculous, okay? This was 2010 at Texas A&M levels of ridiculous, maybe even worse, okay? So that's the other one was going into the end zone. We had a goal line, and they called it down at the 2 when it was like down at the 6-inch line. And Rule thought it was going to be 6-inch line. That's why they called that jump over the play call to Dowdell. And that play just goes and runs, not knowing that, oh, we're at the 2-yard line. That's really on Dylan, because in that moment, he's got to see, okay, we're at the 2-yard line. Naked bootleg. You don't even have to tell anybody. It's actually better if you don't tell anybody about a naked bootleg, because the whole motion of the play is going the other way. Anyway, and then the OPI on Nair was just ridiculous. Like the Banks one was ticky-tacky, but I could kind of, okay, maybe, but the Nair one was, oh my God, I was red. I was beat red with anger.
Yeah.
not because of my blood pressure. Well, probably because of my blood pressure.
Yeah. But
Anyway,
that was really bad.
Yeah, it was
the fact that
important
they didn't call pass
position.
interference.
Yeah,
The fact they didn't call pass interference on that catch that got overruled. The catch was bang bang, could go either way.
yeah.
I'm not
Schoolyard
gonna
ball is a
admit
catch.
Yeah.
Like a Bo Rude makes he's a big proponent. Bo Rude, Nick Bob Bo Rude, they have a podcast. It's great. It's mandatory viewing if you're a Husker fan. I'd say it's like the best recap pod. One of the best. We're the best. We're the best. That's why you're here right now. No, but they're professionals. They're really good. Bo Rude hit one of the things he's always harping on is he hates replay. He wants there to be no replay, because he has talked to officials and talked about how over time, with replay, their instincts and decision-making senses get sort of dulled, because they know that they have these backups here and there and all that. And it's, and it's been 25 years since we've had replay, 20 years. So, we're starting to see the ramifications of that. And, those types of catches, like the Banks catch, like you said, and the touchdown that was called back, right? Like it was so close that it's like those two plays, if we don't have replay, it's like a schoolyard play. Like it's a catch. You know what I mean? Like, so anyway,
and
I'm starting to see his perspective more and more as I watch the games. I completely disagreed with him, and now I'm like, maybe. But then there's the other side of the argument where it's like we could put microchips in the ball and know exactly where the line of scrimmage is at any time. We have the technology for all of that, so you could go either way. And really, the more realistic one's probably the technology angle. But
anyway. But let's focus back on the team just for the next couple minutes here.
Yeah.
One of the things, one of the criticisms first that's coming out in the game is on the offensive play calling. And I mean, I think it's some of it's fair, some of it isn't. People don't like screen passes in general because they're not flashy and they almost never work. But to throw a screen pass, and I think he said something like this, right? But the reason screen passes are such a big deal is if you have a defense that you can't just bully around at the line of scrimmage and that are trying to put pressure on you through stunts and blitzes, one of the ways to counteract that is to throw a screen pass. And one of the reasons that you can counteract that is because you have more numbers on the outside than you do on the inside, because they're bringing people in on the interior line. So the ideal of a screen pass is to get it out fast and get a little bit of yards to make them think twice about just bringing the house or bringing blitzes here and there. That is why screen passes are a big deal. Yeah. And to Sat's credit, he kind of said that. I think I actually just said it better than him, but he did say that to a degree.
Yes.
Now, they weren't being ran very well. Our wide receiver blocking was not doing a very good job, and so that gets from frustration. But if you also look at Dylan, who I thought had a great game, I just do. That interception at the end of the game was honestly pretty bad, but at that point, I don't think anything was going to happen anyways. But he missed a couple throws that could have been touchdowns, like the one to Banks.
Oh yeah, no, that's a big problem with Dylan missing throws.
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah,
It has been all year at this point.
The one to Banks steep, the one to Barney in the back of the end zone. That was like the delayed crosser. Great call. Great call. Both of them were great calls. He hits on those. They're different conversations.
No,
So
yeah.
there's a level of play calling. There just is. It's not as endemic as people think it is. It definitely is there. And remember, I was last week really critical, really critical. And I still am really critical of Sat. I still think he might need to go away. But that game, if we're just looking at that game, the level of execution for some of those play calls, if they hit, there's no conversation about that this week.
So
Right?
my counterpoint on the screens is actually has to do with execution. And there's this sort of like fifth element, I guess, sixth sense, unspoken, intangible thing about Ohio State, where it's like on those screenplays, they have players that are athletic enough that can fully commit to trying to go get the quarterback. And then when he throws the ball, plant and go make the play. You know what I mean? Like that was the unspoken thing that I was seeing happen, especially on the wide receiver screens, where a defensive lineman would go 2 steps too far, for any other defensive lineman. I'm not talking about all the way up, but up 2 steps too far for any other defensive lineman. And then it's okay because they're so athletic, they can just plant and get right back down the line. So that is when you start to, I'm not an offensive genius. I'm not an offensive coordinator.
You know what?
But when you start to see that happen, what's the answer? And we started to get the run game going and stuff. But yeah.
So then they're selling out for screens.
Right.
And you saw them selling out for screens. You know what you do? You have the bunch set like they were having, and you have the one drop back like they always do to get the pass, or you come in, you have one guy take one hard step in and fade, because all of those guys are going to suck down, and you have a wide open, depending on what the safety is.
Nair, Lloyd,
you
Barney,
have
whoever.
someone, because they commit. You commit, go upfield.
Yep. And then you overthrow them.
And then you overthrow them. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. We did stuff like that.
You see, like that's a play call that you can
Right.
counteract when they're doing and getting the screen passes how they are.
Right.
That's a very typical play. I didn't just make that up.
Right.
You see that every week. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not every week, but you see that all the time.
We called it Mickey. That was our big call in high school, was Mickey, because our screen had to do with Disney too. But then Mickey was like this one. Everyone knew Mickey was coming. We were going to score because it was a fake screen wheel route, essentially, like what you just described.
Yeah.
But anyway. So I do want to give a positive shout out to the offense. They did get the run game going at a very critical time in the game when it was important for us to be running clock. And that's really the big reason why we were in the game. Ultimately. So shout out to the run game, Dowdell and Emmett Johnson. Unfortunately, Ramir wasn't healthy. So we'll see what happens. He was concussed. That's what it was. Okay. So we'll see what happens with him. Hopefully he'll be back soon, because man, he was starting to find his rhythm, I think. They just kept getting called back. It's like
oh man, he's had so many touchdowns called back this year. It's wild. But no,
for sure.
The offense definitely did play well. They played well enough to win. Just a couple execution things here and there. It's a completely different outcome. It just
we're proud of the team,
especially on the defense side of the balls too. You have 2 explosive plays. Game's completely different. One of those, you call that pass interference to keep the drive alive, and the next play they throw it deep. Come on. That's a rough touchdown.
And Hartzog made a hell of a play on the interception, and he knew. I know he knew in his mind, like, he's a smart football player. Like, I got to get this in. I know he knew that, and that's why he made a hell of a run and got us all the way into the goal line. I mean, it's not on a Hartzog, but he needed to score there. I even thought it in the moment. I was like, man, he needed to score there, because we didn't end up scoring on that drive. So But anyway, so I am proud of the team. I will say this flag that I have back here, I'm all turned around. This flag that I have back here, the black shirts flag. I put it up whenever we have the show, and usually I take it down after. But during the season, if we've won, I've just kind of kept it up, and if we've lost, I've taken it down so I can walk through the door. And I've kept it up this week because I was like, okay, I'm proud of the team. I'm keeping it up.
Yeah.
They
Though,
deserve
again,
it.
we're past the point of no moral victories, but with our schedule that we have left, and before we get into there, let's do our record check in here.
Yeah.
Let's see. I should already have this queued up. Can't believe I didn't have this queued up. There we go. All right.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, if you take a look at the record, we have we're at 5-3, which is exactly where I had us at this time.
Us what, 6-2?
Yeah, you had us at 6-2 after the Ohio State. I forgot to put those down there, but I had us at 5-3, and then winning 3 of our last 4, and you had us winning 3 of our last 4. So and the exact same games too. So if we do exactly how these are, again, preseason predictions, we end up at 8-4. But if we win out, we get to your coveted 9-3.
Yes.
And now after Ohio State, the Ohio State game, you have to kind of think that like every game, and you even said this, every game is like very winnable from now on.
Yes.
We have the 2 Cali teams, and then 2 teams that have given us a lot of guff in the past. So
yeah, boy, isn't it wild? Like the beginning of the year, we both looked at that USC game and we both said win, but it was really because I doubted Lincoln Riley. Overall, in the back of my mind, I was like, they are a top 15 team going into the year. That could be a really tough game and another Ohio State type of automatic loss in the column type game. And now it's like, man, that's a very winnable game.
I have to go back and look. But I think my reasoning for us winning was USC is going to have a really tough time in the Big Ten. And at this point in the season, they're going to be talking about Mike Riley. We've got to be talking about Lincoln Riley's job.
You're not wrong.
Because the wheels have come off and they have no answers. And
I don't know
that's
if
kind of what
too much Lincoln Riley job talk, but yeah.
They keep on their path. There's
sure.
definitely talk, brother. There's definitely talk. But yeah, no. So all in all,
I see those 2 games as more winnable than Wisconsin and Iowa, just because the immediate history that we have with those 2 teams. There's more baggage there.
There is more baggage. There's more emotion in these 2 teams.
Yes.
You can look at these as just go out and execute kind of games. These have way more emotion in them. Yeah. Specifically Iowa. But Wisconsin's not a pushover. I know.
We've beat Iowa what, two times, 3 times since we've been in the conference, at least 2 or 3 times. 2 or 3, not that many, but 2 or 3. One of those 2 combinations. Wisconsin once, and in that same year they embarrassed us at the end of the year. So no, like I'm sorry, we got to beat Wisconsin. That's if I had to pick one team on that list to win, it would be Wisconsin for me personally.
Wisconsin.
But,
all right.
But we'll move on to the who we play this week, which is a very interesting parallel, right? The team that we beat in our last bowl game is going to be the team that we beat to go bowl eligible for the first time since that bowl game.
And like funny. And I don't know if you're going to change the heading of this video, but I have it as Huskers will go bowling versus UCLA.
Yes, I know. That's why I just said that definitively. Yeah. Yes.
I say will. And on paper, like record wise, right? You look at it, we're 5-3. They're 2-5. So definitely a worse record, but you look at who they've had to play already. Yeah. They have not had an easy schedule, right? No. Let me see if I can pull that up really quick because they have not had an easy schedule.
They have a signature win against the Rainbows, the Fighting Rainbows of Hawaii. Sorry. Yeah, that's just forever colors my expectations of this UCLA team because that was their first game of the year. They struggled with Hawaii. But you know, Wisconsin for me, man, this Wisconsin team is not a pushover. They have a But I know they
Yeah.
played LSU as well. I know they played
Yeah.
LSU, and then they have
Yeah.
a Big Ten schedule, so that's a damn crazy
Yeah.
schedule.
Let me pull it up just so we can talk about it. Okay. Um, yes. Okay. So they started with Hawaii with a win, a 3-point win, and then they played Indiana. Got trounced. So did we. They scored more than us and didn't give
Yes.
us as many points.
Yes.
They lost to LSU. If I remember right, this game wasn't that far, and then
Yeah.
LSU pulled away in the second half. I think at
Yes.
halftime it was really, really close.
Yes.
But yeah, and then LSU pulled away. Oregon just dominated this game. Penn State. This is not a Penn State team that blows teams out.
No.
They just don't. They're a very, very good football team. Don't get me wrong, but they don't blow people out. They beat them by a couple scores, and so that's pretty indicative of a lot of their wins this year. And then Minnesota's beat some good teams. I think
They're a favorite against Illinois this week. At Illinois.
they are.
They're a favorite.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Wow.
So yeah,
Yeah.
Illinois.
So,
I don't know what
then
people are
they-
thinking, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, and then they beat Rutgers, which we did too. They beat them by 3 points, and we probably
but they scored more
honestly,
points on them. But that they're a weird case.
Again, yeah, just look at the
Yeah.
game. Our offense played that crap, and they had opportunities to probably score like 3 more touchdowns.
Yeah.
And they squandered them.
First year head coach,
especially
Sean Foster.
Oh my god, and the field goals for last game we forgot to mention. Just
yes, shout out to John
good job.
Hull. Good
John
job.
Hall. Good job.
I was
Sorry,
pumped up.
sorry.
And it was funny. It was funny because I was watching the game downstairs and we kicked into the field goal and I got all pumped up. Yeah. And it was, I think, when we went to 9 points, and I looked over at our dad, and he gave me the same look that he's given me for 20 years watching football, which is the losers kick field goals look.
Kick field goals.
And I said, Dad, have some perspective here, okay? Losers kick field goals, but even bigger losers can't kick field goals.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
but anyway, back to UCLA. So again, this team is not a pushover. They fight really hard. I think they have a pretty decent defense from what I've seen and just like stats and everything. I think their offensive line is good. I don't think it's ready for the Big Ten, which is why they haven't won a lot of games, but I think they have a good offensive line. So they're not a pushover. It's not a pushover game whatsoever. Luckily it is at home. That does give us a favorable, advantage, but
for sure.
I don't know. How are you feeling about it? I mean, I've only watched them play. I watched them play Oregon and I watched them play Indiana, but
I'm feeling pretty good. I'm buying into the propaganda, Matt Rule taught his post-game press conference after Ohio State and then his into this week indicated he spoke in language that he hasn't spoken with before, where he's indicating that this team has like hit a turning point, where he's like looking at like, okay, like their mentality is much more stable now. And if that's the case, then hopefully the team that showed up against Ohio State will show up against UCLA. This crowd will be ready. I'll tell you that much, because we're clawing for a bowl game. It's time. Okay. And we all know. Okay. So, and it's a home game, 2:30, this crowd should be ready. I'm confident.
Because guess what? If we drop this game, and I don't even want to put this in the ether, I'm going to knock. But if we lose this game, there comes a little bit of the pucker factor. Yeah. You start to go again, because last year we had 4 games to win 1. Was it 4 or 3? I think it was 3. 3 games to win 1. To go bowling, and we didn't do it. A lot of the same guys are on this team, so you start to think about that a little bit, whether you don't want to or not, but you do. You just do.
Well, the narratives, the media narratives too. It's like, you got to think about it this way, right? And all of this has a direct feedback loop effect to the team. It does, because we're all connected. We are with our phones. So, first 4 games of the year, the narrative is positive. Then Illinois narrative goes down a little bit, but it's okay. It's one loss, then more positivity. And then Indiana, and it's the lowest it's been all year.
Yeah.
Right. And then Ohio State is like, oh, the light from the dark comes back up. But if we lose to UCLA, that narrative goes back down. And it's just like as a course of losing. It's not anybody's fault. It's not anybody out there pushing anything. It's a course of losing. That's just how it works. People will question the coaching staff more. They'll question the decisions more. They will dive into the minutia of each mistake we made throughout the game more. So it's just much more stressful for the whole organization. So yeah, it's a very important, very, very important game.
Very important. And not just for that, for just I think the players are going to come out and they're going to feel a little bit disrespected about the Ohio State game. I really do, because the media is talking about the refs and they're talking about what's wrong with Ohio State, not what's right with Nebraska. I think that's going to light a fire. But between that and, getting bowl eligible, I think they're going to be locked in and ready to play. So,
Zach Smith, he was doing film breakdowns going into the Ohio State versus Nebraska game. He's that coach that has the Minister Sports. He's old, used to be Ohio State coach. He was doing film breakdowns going into the Ohio State Nebraska game, and he pointed out MJ Sherman against Indiana, and he was like, "Look at how fat and slow this lineman is." And then MJ Sherman had that play where he chased down Will Howard from behind. And I listened to Zach yesterday. He was like, "What the heck happened with that guy the other week? Like, he was good this week. What happened?" I was like, "They were out of position, bro. Like, you should know that more than me." Like,
yeah.
But anyway, so let's do predictions, right? Are we doing official score predictions?
Yeah. All right.
Let's do it.
Let's go. You go first. I think I went first last week.
I think that Deshaun Foster's first year head coach, I think in all reality, Autzen Stadium's a good environment. I think they proved that a couple of weeks ago, but UCLA really hasn't been playing they haven't seen an environment like Lincoln this deep into the year. This is new for them, and they'll be coming across the country. I think that this will be a sort of lucky situation for Nebraska where they run into a flat UCLA team. And I think it's going to be a confidence boosting sort of win for us. Actually, I think we're going to win I think our offense is going to score over 30 points, which will be a confidence boost. And I think they're going to score 10. So I think I got 31-10 Nebraska.
31-10 Nebraska. Wow.
Yeah.
What's the line? Do you know?
I think it's 6.5. I think it's 6.5 Nebraska.
I can look real quick.
Yeah, it started at 9. Now it's at 6.5.
It's a 7 right now.
7. Okay.
Yeah. So this is one of those things that you can say anything you want when you're in front of a microphone. The team has to back it up. And I think, if he says that the team is at a turning point, has the championship mindset, you have 4 games left in the season to prove it, to accelerate through the finish line, to win these 4 games, accelerate through the finish line. That would really, really set things up for next year to be special.
Absolutely.
But if you only win one of these games, you're kind of still stuck in that mud, even though you got it. You have to exceed expectations, which we have not done in a really long time.
It's like you're still in the mud, but your nose is poking out of the mud with that win. It's you're still fully submerged. But
I think there's going to be a lot more questions because of the talent that this team has.
Absolutely.
Against 4 teams that I would say, just on a per team basis as a whole, we probably have more average talent than more talent on average, not average talent.
Yeah.
Wisconsin is probably the closest as far as USC is probably the closest as far as skill players.
Yeah,
USC, they definitely have, I think, some better skill players at this point. But
and then in the trenches, Wisconsin and Iowa will match us in the trenches.
Yes, but just again, on average, this can be a statement win, to begin the process of accelerating through the finish line. They're going to come and they're going to be locked in, and I don't want to say it's going to be a complete blowout, but they're never going to lose control of the game. Like Rutgers, that game never really felt out of control. Never did.
I agree with that.
Even though we only won by a touchdown.
There was
So
the moment where the dude was streaking down the field and he dropped the ball. That one moment where it was like, oh no. Besides that, you're right. It didn't feel
Besides that, okay,
Yeah.
okay, sure, that's fair. But I think we win. We win 28 to 17.
28 to
So
17.
28-17. That's what I think the final score is.
So the Huskers are going bowling.
Yeah.
Huskers are going bowling.
Yeah, you can't drop this game.
No.
You just can't. There's
Well, I
no
agree.
reason to.
Well, I agree, and on your overall statement with the last 4 games, the other thing to think about is like we have a lot of old players. I was talking about this at the beginning of the year when I was trying to say we were number 6. Like we have a lot of old veteran players on this team, and it's where there's a lot to replace next year too. That's the other factor of this. So you need to give them that momentum as well. If the seniors do. So, yeah, important stretch. Here we go. We're in November, baby. Important stretch.
Yeah. This is where we've crumbled every year since Mike Riley.
Yeah.
This is where we're going to see whether the Matt Rule culture has taken effect.
In November, Bo Pelini had a lot of trouble in November. I mean, he did.
Yes, specifically at the end. But
yeah.
But
anyway,
okay,
sorry.
we would all take the Pelini years right now.
Oh, no doubt about it. But November's been one of those things that's been sort of like a hard stretch for Nebraska for a long time. Even when we were a decent team, the losses usually happen in November, and then you're crawling into the Big Ten championship game with Cameron Meredith as your nose tackle who weighs 260 pounds. And anyway,
No, you're right. But so we're rearing to go. We're gonna see. Honestly, we're gonna see where the team is now.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna see where the team is. They've had a couple of losses. They're in the driving seat to do everything really that they wanted to do this year, because we were never going to win the Big Ten. We were never gonna go to the CFB. Even though it kind of looked there for a little bit. Our Colorado win is looking better week after week.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Colorado is probably going to have a little bit more trouble this week, but
the big question in these last 4 games is, can Nebraska maintain a level of consistency? Now we hope that's a level of consistent elite play, but can they maintain a level of consistency? Because it's just been left, so when they play well and when they're dialed in, they're a pretty good ball club. But when they don't, they can be beat by any one of these 4 teams remaining on the schedule. So we'll see. I'm excited to see. We'll see.
We'll see. We always end with we'll see.
We'll see.
But it's 3:30 my time, 2:30 your time. So it's not a noon kickoff, which is definitely going to help us. We've historically played better this year, not in the noon slot. So let's go Big Red. Let's get bowl eligible.
That there's no place like.
Always remember that there's no place like this podcast.